Okay, how's it going, everyone? My name is Casper. In this video, I am going to talk about Donald Trump and the current astrology right now, especially regarding the just a lot to do with the transits, the astrological transits for Donald Trump, and kind of things related to him, especially with Algol, with the fixed star Algol. I think that is a really important fixed star right now because in a few days, um, uh, in July 15th, Mars and Uranus are going to make a conjunction on the fixed star Algol. And I remember saying this. I made a video on Jordan Peterson and his astrology chart. And I remember saying July, the beginning of July, is going to get kind of crazy. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening. And I think on July 15th, something seriously major is going to happen, and I'd like to talk about that. So, first, let's take a look at Donald Trump's chart again just to like get a refresher. I did make a video on his chart like over 2 years ago, and so if you want you can check it out, but I'll briefly talk about it now. So, the really fascinating thing about Trump's chart is that he has his ascendant conjunct Regulus, which is a very important fixed star, and then he has his midheaven or MC conjunct Algol. So there's a couple of things to this. First of all, let's take a look. So the fixed star Regulus is like there's this great website called Astrology King, and you can read about it, but it's a very famous it's a star that brings a lot of fame and wealth and prosperity. It's like the king star. It makes you a king if you have your ascendant conjunct this. Like it says ascendant conjunct Regulus, military honor and preferment, great honor and wealth, but violence and trouble, sickness, fever. So it's a fixed star that brings you a lot of fame and prosperity and wealth, but I guess there's something dangerous about it. There's something wrong about it. But I like to think of it as the kingly fixed star. And then Algol is the fixed star that has to do with the head Medusa, the Medusa's head. It has a lot to do with alcohol as well, I believe. Yes. Algol is the head of the Gorgon Medusa, and it's derived from the same root as alcohol, or a demon, evil spirit, which is incredibly fascinating. So, if you look at Trump's chart, he has this ascendant conjunct Regulus, which explains why he's become the president of the United States, why he's kind of a king, right? Because he was a convicted felon, and yet he's still allowed to run for president. Clearly, he is above the law because he is like a modern king. I remember I said this in my Donald Trump astrology video that he is a modern monarch of our age. And then furthermore, Donald Trump has his midheaven conjunct Algol, which is another fixed star that has a lot to do with alcohol, the head of Medusa, but it also brings you a lot of fame and wealth. So if you look at Donald Trump, he is so lucky to have the placements that he has, because to have your ascendant conjunct Regulus and your midheaven conjunct Algol is very rare. Like it's going to make you famous. I mean, it has to. And I wish I mentioned this in my first astrology video on Donald Trump, but I didn't, unfortunately, because I didn't realize. I didn't know about Algol until like a few months ago when I started watching Joni Patry, who is probably one of my favorite astrologers on YouTube. And she says this, like, it has a lot to do with alcohol, people getting beheaded and stuff like that. And so it's just really like it's like one in a million or like one in a billion to have. Well, I don't know what the statistics are, but the thing is, if you have your ascendant conjunct a fixed star and your midheaven, you're going to be famous because it's so rare and it's so like what are the chances, right? Because the ascendant moves 1 degree every 4 minutes, and to have your ascendant exactly conjunct Regulus at 29 degrees, and then have your midheaven almost conjunct Algol, right? Because Algol is 26 degrees. I mean, that's pretty amazing because if Donald Trump was born at this exact time in, say, Australia or on the around the equator, the midheaven would be off, right? Because the midheaven adjusts based on the, is it latitude or longitude? I don't know, but he was born literally at the right place at the right time for his destiny. Like, this is why I feel like astrology, it's not that I don't believe in free will, but I do believe that our lives are fated in some way because people who have placements conjunct fixed stars, they have a very strong purpose. It's like higher energies, higher forces are living through these people. And so Donald Trump has he has a purpose to him, that this is why he became president. This is why he rose to prominence. This is why he seems to be so lucky, especially because um, what's really interesting, right, is that he has his sun, Rahu, and Uranus all conjunct in the 10th house in Gemini. And I mean, there's a lot of different things to say about that, but like, it makes you an egomaniac. It makes you someone who is really focused on ego because the sun is your ego and your vitality, and Rahu is obsession and and taking shortcuts. So this is someone who takes shortcuts to increase their ego. And then if you throw Uranus in there, which is the planet of sudden ups and downs, uh it's like you're suddenly gonna have like an ego boost or a sudden ego loss. Like your self esteem is shifting all the time, and because this is in his 10th house, a lot of his ego stuff has to do with his career and his public image and receiving recognition. Right. This is why he's so focused on being the center of attention and just saying outrageous things, especially because he's a Gemini. Right. Geminis, they're ruled by the planet Mercury. Mercury is the planet of business and commerce, which is, Trump is a businessman, but also Mercury is the planet of talking, writing, and communication, and just talking a lot. And it's the two-sided sign. So, right, it's the sign of the twins. So it's like you say one thing over here, and then you say something completely different over here, which, Geminis have a reputation for lying all the time or contradicting themselves because they're two-sided. That they communicate everything. They see two sides of the issue, right? They're all about trade and transactions. So this is why I think Donald Trump lies all the time, especially for the sake of his ego and getting attention. So yeah, his Trump is just his Trump. His chart is just, it's so fascinating because you have this whole all of his planets are in the top left of his chart, or most of them, which makes for a leader. He has his ascendant conjunct Regulus, which makes his personality very big and bold and like a king. And then he has his Mars conjunct ascendant, which makes him a bully, right? Because Mars is anger, violence, and aggression, that very masculine planet. So you can just, his chart is just so perfect for who he is and explains the way he is. And in this video, I really want to talk about the presidential debates a little bit. And I feel like one of the reasons why Donald Trump gets elected, or why a lot of people believe in him, is because he has such a strong character. Not in the moral sense, obviously, but he has a very strong personality because of that Mars conjunct ascendant. And Mars conjunct ascendant, especially conjunct Regulus, it makes someone the astrology says that like these people are really great generals, military leaders. Where is it? Right. So like, if we're gonna head into like a world war or anything, and if we want someone who is strong, we're gonna want someone with Mars conjunct Regulus. Now, I'm not saying that like I would vote for Donald. I think both. I think Joe Biden and Donald Trump are both horrible political leaders, but I'm just saying I feel like a lot of Trump's appeal is the fact that he has his Mars conjunct Regulus conjunct his ascendant, right? Because it brings honor, fame, strong character, public prominence, high military command, very high military command. He's very favorable when it comes to standing up for our country in a sense, standing up for dominance and standing up to other dictators and authoritarians and stuff like that. So I mean, so it just makes sense that he would become the president. Like, I'm sorry, like, I just feel like he is destined to rule. He is just destined to be in control of these things. I'm not trying to beef him up. This is just what the astrology is saying. Because it really does feel like, how can someone like Donald Trump get elected not only for this semester, I don't know, like for this term, and then it sounds like he's going to get elected again for 2025 and beyond, and it's just amazing. Like, how is this happening? Like, and I think it also plays into the fact that Donald Trump has his son again, that Uranus is kind of like the wild card in astrology. It's sudden ups and downs, it's sudden change, it's kind of like reversal of fortunes. It's like suddenly fortunate or suddenly unfortunate, and I think this explains why Donald Trump became the president, because it's like it was so unexpected. Like, no one expected this to happen. So Donald Trump, in very many ways, that he's like the trump card. Literally, he's the wild card. He's like throwing chaos into politics wherever he goes. Donald Trump flips the table on things, because that's just his personality. I mean, that Uranus is so strong in his chart when it conjuncts Rahu and the sun. And then on top of it, his sun rules over his chart because he has a Leo ascendant. So, but I think the most fascinating thing about Trump's chart, and I'm going to get into the transits, is that he has his midheaven conjunct Algol. And again, I remember Algol has a lot to do with beheadings. Algol has a lot to do with being drunk, dealing with alcoholism. And there's this really interesting video where Donald Trump talks about drinking, and I think it has a lot to do with his midheaven conjunct Algol.
I learned myself. I had a brother, Fred, great guy, best looking guy, best personality, much better than mine. He had a problem. He had a problem with alcohol. And he would tell me, don't drink. Don't drink. He was substantially older, and I listened to him and I respected, but he would constantly tell me, don't drink. He'd also add, don't smoke. But he would say it over and over and over again.
So I think that's really interesting, because I think in many respects, I think Donald Trump is being kind of like saved from this midheaven conjunct Algol, because again, Algol is like the worst fixed star in astrology, and it has to do with beheadings. And it's just really interesting because, right, like Leo ascendants have a strong, because Leo has a lot to do with being the king. And if your ascendant is in Leo or conjunct Regulus, there's a very good chance your midheaven is going to conjunct Algol, which is like getting your head cut off. Isn't it interesting how kings, when we think of kings, we often think of beheadings and stuff like that? I think it's because of this not planetary, but this astrological placing where, your ascendant is very likely to put your midheaven close to Algol. And so it's just really fascinating, because if you look at the transits over, hold on, let me delete a few tabs. Oh yeah, and I just want to say, like, having your ascendant conjunct Regulus really does make you a king, because one of the richest men in the world right now, Bernard Arnault, who owns Louis Vuitton, he has his ascendant conjunct Regulus. Here's his, I believe, this is his chart. So his ascendant is 28 degrees, so practically conjunct Regulus. and he was one of the richest men in the world. So, I mean, like, I'm telling you, like, if you have strong placements to fixed stars, you are destined to live out some kind of important life or have a great influence on the planet. Um, so, okay, so let's talk about the transits of Donald Trump related to his midheaven conjunct Algol. So, and remember, Algol is at 26 degrees of Taurus. So remember when Donald Trump was found guilty May 30th? I believe it was May 30th. This is what I'm getting in Google. So May 30th, Donald Trump was convicted of all of these crimes. So let's go to May 30th. May, this is going to take forever. Okay. So, and also remember, the midheaven has to do with the public and your reputation. So if you go to May 30th, this is so fascinating. Mercury and Uranus are both conjunct Algol the day we get the news that Donald Trump was a convicted felon, right? Isn't that fascinating, right? And Mercury, again, is writing and communication. Uranus is sudden reversal of fortunes, right? So, like, everyone's thinking, like, right, because Uranus is 24 degrees May 30th, which is exactly conjunct Donald Trump's midheaven, which is at 24 degrees. So it's just fascinating, right? Because he has like the sudden reversal. Like everyone's thinking, oh, he's not going to be able to run for president now, especially because this reversal of fortune is being highlighted when Mercury comes around, because Mercury is very quick. So like the days are going by, and then as soon as we get to May 30th, boom, we suddenly get the news that, oh, Donald Trump is a convicted felon. Everyone's thinking, is he even going to be able to run for president? Right? And then we get, hold on, let me, and then on, let's see, and then we're going to get his sentencing, right? So he was convicted for 34 counts, and then he's going to get sentenced July 11th. Now, July 11th hasn't happened yet, but oh my God, look how crazy this is. So on July 11th, before July 11th, we're starting to see Mars approach Uranus, right? So this is kind of, see how like Mercury is kind of foreshadowing this Uranus reversal of fortune. Look at Mars coming up to Uranus as we get closer to July 11th. We're getting closer and closer and closer, right? Today is July 2nd, and we're already starting to get news of like, I don't know about you, but I've been getting like people thinking about assassinating Trump. But like people are thinking about like killing Trump, or like especially just recently the debates that took place a few days ago. It's very clear that Donald Trump is going to win, right? He's going to win the presidency. There's no way that Joe Biden is going to get elected after that horrible display. So everyone is like, okay, Donald Trump is the next president. And so I feel like a lot of people are like super angry and like afraid for the country. And so they're thinking about assassinating him. Or there's a lot of talk. Like it could just be talk and a bunch of nonsense. I don't know if Trump is actually going to be assassinated, but it is pretty scary because Mars, which is the planet of anger, violence, and aggression, is starting to approach Donald Trump's midheaven at 24 degrees and this Uranus and Taurus, right? So like, again, let's look, right? Donald Trump has his midheaven at 24 degrees of Taurus, very close to Algol. And then we start to see Mars approaching Uranus and making a conjunction. And so on July 11th, he's going to get sentenced to something, right? Right? Like you see the astrology telling you, like something's going to happen on July 11th. The sentencing or whatever is going to change Donald Trump's trajectory. It's right because Uranus is reversal of fortune. Mars is violence and aggression. Something's going to happen. Either he loses his ability to be president, his sentencing is just too big or too small, something like that. Because a few days after that sentencing, on July 15th, Mars and Uranus are going to make a conjunction exactly on the fixed star Algol. And I remember saying this in my Jordan Peterson astrology video. I told everyone to be careful of the beginning of July and just of July because of this conjunction. I remember saying someone's going to get beheaded this day. Now, and in my opinion, I feel like Donald Trump could very well be one of these people that gets beheaded or assassinated. Now, I don't know, is he actually going to get assassinated? Probably not. It's like unlikely, but a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people, I mean, it could happen because Donald Trump's midheaven is so close to this conjunction. And Algol is all about beheadings and losing your head. Like you literally lose your head, especially because Algol has a lot to do with alcohol and right, like you're delusional, like your head gets detached from your body. And what's really fascinating is I don't know if you guys remember Kathy Griffin from like forever ago, like 7, 8 years ago. But remember when she made that joke about beheading Donald Trump? I mean, this literally looks like the head of Medusa getting her head cut off. And she was just making a joke, but in very many ways, I think she's foreshadowing what could have happened to Donald Trump, what could happen. And the astrology is lining up for this. So, and I think that's why she got totally rejected and why no one took that joke seriously because, or people took that joke too seriously because she touched on something that was a little bit too, that's too accurate. Like that's too close. Like this actually could happen. So, again, like someone's going to get beheaded on this day. Something, especially because Mars is violence, Uranus is sudden reversal of fortune. Like something's going to happen that could seriously, I don't know. Like I don't know, is Trump going to get assassinated? I don't know, but I'm just saying like it's something to watch out for. It's pretty crazy because the astrology is telling us this. Because remember, like when Mercury and Uranus came together and Donald Trump was convicted of those 34 counts, what happens when Mars and Uranus come together when he gets his sentencing, right? So we're going to see like another wave of something like that. And uh it's pretty crazy. It's just really fascinating. It's really interesting. And what's also really fascinating is that when I was doing Jordan Peterson's astrology chart, he Jordan Peterson has his ascendant. Oh, also this is Kathy Griffin's chart. We don't know the exact time, but her moon could also be conjunct Algol because her moon, at least it could be in Taurus, right? So, but if it could also be possible that her moon could be conjunct Algol, and that's probably why she made the joke about the beheading because she's attached to this energy in some way. She has something to do with this beheading energy, this Medusian Algol energy. So I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Um, uh, okay, so um, oh yeah, I'll get to that in a second. Um, but it's just oh yeah, I wanted to talk about Ben Shapiro a little bit and like so. I remember like Jordan Peterson has his ascendant conjunct Algol. Joe Rogan has his ascendant conjunct Algol. Ben Shapiro, this guy right here, has his ascendant conjunct Algol. And I just think it's really interesting because they're all political commentators. They're all people, well, they're not political commentators, but they all have like these really popular podcasts where they talk about what's going on in the world. And so I think something could happen to them. Uh, or I'm not sure, but I just think we should pay attention to them. Like I think it's so interesting how similar they all are, because they all have their ascendant conjunct Algol, and then they all have like these internet shows where they talk about politics, or they have these interviews with people all around the world, which is really fascinating. But there's one last thing that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to talk about the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And I'll just give a little bit of my political views here. I think this debate is very depressing. I think it says a lot about our country and just how much we have fallen. Because, I mean, the fact that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are our candidates is very sad. Like, I think this country is falling apart. I think the people are just getting dumber. I think the future looks bleak. I think we are moving into. Donald Trump is a harbinger or a transition from real democracy to authoritarian dictatorship. I think we are moving into a very dark era, and if we don't do something about it, we are going to lose our freedoms. Like, it's very disturbing. We are moving into a dark age. I almost think of Biden as an actual symbol of the death of the United States, because it's both hilarious and very depressing. Like, isn't it interesting how comedy is often paired with sadness and depression, right? Like tragic comedy. But like Ben Shapiro calls Biden a corpse. And I see Biden as kind of like the last real politician, like the death of politics and the incoming of a dictator like Donald Trump. Like, I really do see, like, this is a transition. This is like a death. This is a transformation. Like, Joe Biden symbolizes the end, the death of, I think, like, it's not like Joe Biden is like this great person, or I think he's pathetic, but like, I think the fact that he forgets things and he mumbles and he's so weak and he's just so pathetic, and he's someone like Donald Trump can easily beat him by simply just not really saying much. I mean, because all Donald Trump had to do was just let Joe Biden talk, and Joe Biden is basically he's hurting himself because he can't even talk correctly. Like, it's like America is literally just dying, and something else is going to take its place. And I remember I made a video a long time ago, about 2 years ago, America's Pluto return, which is like, is the Western world doomed? Is right, because when Pluto is the planet of death and transformation, and whenever there's a Pluto return, it basically signifies like a truly great death and transformation. Like, the United States has been around for nearly 250 years. It's had its Pluto return. America is going through a transformation right now. Like, this is a time of real transformation. Like, and I feel like Joe Biden in many ways symbolizes this death, this loss of the United States, and something new is going to take its place. And it doesn't look very good with Donald Trump, right? Like, I'm not a leftist, I'm not a rightist. I think both sides suck. I think Republican and Democrat are both awful. I think they're both horrible choices. I think politics seriously needs to change. Like, even though Donald Trump is horrible and what he's going to do is horrible, I still believe that Donald Trump is still kind of necessary, because it's like, I mean, I just think it's interesting that someone so feeble and weak-minded like Joe Biden could have became the president and is the president right now. He's still our president. And it just seems like something needs to like, this decay and this rot, this something needs to take over it. Something needs to come in, and something with energy and vitality needs to replace this corpse. This thing that stands up, that is supposed to stand for something, but it's hollow and there's nothing actually there. So it's just really interesting. And it so there's this part of the debate that I think is really interesting, where Joe Biden is just staring off into space, and Ben Shapiro is making fun of him, which is just, I don't know, it's just
trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security.
Meanwhile,
he will
Biden's
wipe out
looking
Medicare.
stoned.
So he
Where
was
is he
right in
looking?
the way he finished that sentence, and it's a shame.
I mean, Joe Biden looks right there as though death is coming at him. On the stage at the Sixth Sense, he's seeing things no one else is seeing. As Matt Walsh said last night, he is seeing into the afterlife already.
You know, and there's just so many funny parts in this debate, like where they debate about golfing. Like, isn't that such an old man thing to debate about golf? Like, rich white old men are competing about their golf swings. Like, doesn't that tell you just how much politics has fallen apart and just how detached our leaders are from the people? Right? Like, old men talking about golf. Like, it makes me want to fall asleep. Like, are you kidding me right now? Um, but yeah, like look at Biden. But so I wanted to talk about the astrology of this because it's so fascinating. So if you look at Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump is a Gemini with he's the sun in Gemini conjunct Uranus. And what does this mean? Well, basically, Geminis kind of talk a lot of crap, right? They lie all the time, and isn't that exactly what Donald Trump is like? Donald Trump just talks a lot. I mean, excuse my language, but he just talks a lot of shit. He just talks so much nonsense, and he especially in the last debate that they did 4 years ago, where they Donald Trump was always over talking him. And remember when Joe Biden was just like, shut up, man, like just shut up. And it's so funny because if you look at Joe Biden's chart, so here's Joe Biden. He has his ascendant in Sagittarius, and his descendant is in Gemini. So what does that mean? Well, your ascendant kind of represents your personality, like your identity. It represents who you are in astrology, like your basic personality and what people see in you. So if you look at Donald Trump, he has his ascendant conjunct Mars in Leo, right? So he's this bully, he's this king, he's a bully king who goes around and makes fun of people, and he's pompous and arrogant. And then if you look at Joe Biden, he's a Sagittarius rising. And what's so funny about Sagittarius risings is that Sagittarians, they tend to look off into the distance, right? Sagittarius is the sign of wanderlust and looking beyond. I mean, think about it. Sagittarius is the archer, right? You stand on top of some kind of platform, you take your bow and you fire off into the distance, right? Because Sagittarius is about aiming higher. Sagittarius is about looking out and beyond, because you see the bigger picture. Sagittarius is very big picture, right? It's the opposite of Gemini. Gemini is very much the conversation between us, right? I'm talking to you, you're talking to me, we're making a transaction, we're communicating. Sagittarius, and usually this communication with Gemini is trivial, it's gossipy, it's very like local, like what's going on, look at the weather, how much is this, oh, it's $5, oh, I actually price that at $6, you know, that kind of thing. Sagittarius is the sign of philosophy. It's a very big picture. You're not very focused on what's happening in front of you. You're looking out and beyond. And so what's very interesting is that so Joe Biden embodies this energy of looking out, which means he's going to be contrasted with Gemini figures. Like your descendant in astrology often shows people, like the kinds of people that you attract to make your identity pop out, right? So like your Sagittarius identity is really going to come out when you're surrounded by Gemini people. And you literally surround yourself with Gemini people to really show your Sagittarius energy. It's the same with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is usually surrounded by Aquarius people. Because what are Aquarians? Aquarians are very rational. They're democratic. They're humanitarian, right? They think about everybody. While Leo is very selfish and just thinks about himself, right? So Donald Trump, wherever Donald Trump goes, he makes people look like Aquarians. And if you look at Joe Biden, wherever Joe Biden goes, he makes everyone look like a bunch of trivial, silly Geminis. And it's just so funny because if you look at their debate, you really see how Donald Trump is this Gemini. I mean, he literally has his sun in Gemini. He's a very Gemini character. And it really contrasts and stands out to Joe Biden, who's this Sagittarius rising, who literally stares off into the distance, who is overlooking. And if you don't, like, a lot of people wouldn't think that this is typical of Sagittarius energy, but one of my favorite astrologers, Alyssa Sharp, she was actually the person that got me into astrology in the first place. And listen to what she says about Sagittarius rising.
Give you the, like, but know anything about them. They're protecting themselves. So they're like, you're like this, you're like this, you're like this. Makes sense that a lot of Scorpio ascendants are into astrology.
Okay, she's talking
they
about
can
Scorpio.
Figure you out, but, oh yeah, don't come near me. Sagittarius ascendants. Sagittarius ascendants give you the, like, 50-yard nod. You're like, I'm talking to you, but hey, what's up? What's up over there? Yeah, cool. I'll see you later. Hey, what's up with you? Yeah, because they're anywhere but here, anywhere but in the present moment. You can't get them. When you do, you always end up feeling special. Just ignores you all the time, but when you finally get them, like, to come to your party or to, like, talk to you for 5 minutes, you're like, super excited. That would mean they have a Sagittarius ascendant, because otherwise they're way too busy for you and they just don't care, really. Capricorn is...
Isn't that so true, though? Doesn't that perfectly explain Joe Biden? And how did Alyssa Sharp know this? She didn't know about Joe Biden back then. You can I mean, Alyssa Sharp is, like, I feel like a lot of people might think Alyssa Sharp isn't, like, amazing, but, like, her descriptions of the signs are so on point.
Daddy and Salamani, the two greatest stars, biggest stars anywhere in the world, and it had a huge...
Look at Donald Trump just talking his Gemini crap, and then Joe Biden is just staring off into the distance. What a perfect, like, contrast between them. And it's also interesting because Joe Biden has Uranus and Gemini as well, conjunct his descendant. So he attracts a bunch of, like crazy people who are just so sudden and so shocking, right? Like Uranus and Gemini. And then if you look at Donald Trump, Uranus and Gemini conjunct his sun, right? His ego and vitality is very Uranian. And look at the kind of person that Joe Biden attracts. He attracts Uranus people with Gemini energy. So I just really, I don't know, I just think it's pretty fascinating how accurate astrology is, how you can totally see this stuff. And, like, I guess I really wanted to make this video just to kind of, like, show that astrology really is true, that you can actually see things, you can actually predict things. Like I said, like, these next 2 weeks for July, something's gonna happen with Donald Trump, with his publicity, and something's gonna happen. I don't know if he's gonna get assassinated, but, like, it's just... Oh yeah, I forgot about talking about this, but, like, Donald Trump is also getting super lucky right now, because if you look, Jupiter, which is the planet of luck and expansion, it's going right through Gemini right now. I mean, Jupiter entered Gemini in, I think it was in May. So, like, ever since, Donald Trump is actually getting super lucky right now, because Donald Trump is a Gemini. Like, a lot of Gemini people, they're getting lucky, or they're carrying themselves with this kind of higher wisdom, because Jupiter is the planet of wisdom. Like, it's very interesting. Like, between the debate with Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I was expecting Donald Trump to kind of overtalk Joe Biden and to kind of, you know, be his kind of petty, trivial Gemini energy, but he actually held his tongue. He didn't devolve into pure insults. I mean, Donald Trump really, he was really strong, and I think it's because he had Jupiter going right. It's in his sign right now. Jupiter is giving him strength and making him look really, really good right now. You could also think of it as, like, Joe Biden, right? Because the 7th house is not just people who contrast with your identity. It's also the house of public enemies, right? So if Jupiter is going through your 7th house, your enemies, people who are facing you, are doing really good. They have a lot going on for them, like, right? Like, Donald Trump has a lot. I'm actually moving like him. You know, he does this. Anyway, but Donald Trump has a lot going on for him right now. And Jupiter is just going to keep Like, if Donald Trump ever, if he does get assassinated or anything, I don't think he's actually going to die. I think Jupiter is protecting him right now. His sentencing will probably be pretty light because of that Jupiter in his 10th house. Jupiter, you know, in Gemini, and Jupiter becomes, oh, this is so fascinating, guys. Like, so I think the elections are November 3rd, right? Okay, so the next election is November 5th, right? Look at November 5th. So we're going to November 5th. Do. Um November 5th. Look at this. Jupiter is at 20 degrees of Gemini. 20 degrees of Gemini. And then Mars is also in Leo. So, like, let's look at Donald Trump's chart. Donald Trump has his sun at 22 degrees of Gemini. He has his Rahu at 20 degrees of Gemini, and he has his Uranus at 17 degrees. Jupiter is going to give him a huge ego boost. What does that mean? If Donald Trump gets an ego boost, what does that tell you? If he's going to win the presidency, or he's going to feel really confident on this day. He's going to feel really good. He's going to feel really empowered. Mars is going to be entering in Leo, right? Which will make him more aggressive and more of a bully. Like, he's really, I mean, I'm not trying to beef him up. I'm just saying, like, the astrology looks really good for him right now. I mean, he's gonna do very, very well because this Jupiter is strengthening his sun in Gemini. And for the next couple of years, Jupiter is gonna go all across these planets in his chart. All across, and this is like the very public part of the chart. Like, he's gonna do very well. And I mean, this could mean a lot of things. I mean, it could mean that, like, he just gets really lucky and luck is on his side. It could mean that he gets his crap together. Like, he does things that a lot of people are like, wow, I never expected Donald Trump to do something like this, right? Because the planet of wisdom will be crossing all of these parts in his chart, right? This lucky planet is going to make him make better choices. He's going to look like he's on top of things. He's going to look like he has it together. So, I mean, a lot of people already said that Donald Trump is going to be our next president, but, like, the astrology seems to confirm this because Jupiter is traversing through Gemini right now. And then, of course, that Mars in Leo is going to really boost that. And I think, isn't there, like, a retrograde as well? Yeah, there's also a retrograde. But anyway, those were the main things that I really wanted to talk about. And I think it's pretty fascinating. I think it really shows that, you know, astrology is true. It's also really interesting how, like, that Uranus is going to hover around Donald Trump's midheaven as well. Because, look, as I'm jumping through the months, right, like, so we're in July, right? Uranus is at 25 degrees. And then in September it goes retrograde. And then it comes back to Donald Trump, his midheaven, in November and December, right? So it's like, and then it goes forward at 23 degrees in March. It's like Uranus is really hovering around Donald Trump's midheaven. And so I feel like Donald Trump in his career, we're going to see a lot of, like, ups and downs. We're going to see a lot of, like, whoa, is he president or is he not president? Or, like, is he going to be able to keep running or is he not? Like, I feel like we're getting a lot of that because Uranus is ups and downs and reversals and flipping the table and just in general. Because Donald Trump is a Uranian personality, of course his life is just going to be like this reversal of things. So yeah, that's it for this video, and thank you for watching. I'll see you later.